built on relationships, focused on people, and rooted in the community. Welcome to the Build Blue podcast. Tune in for weekly episodes featuring guests who are building a better tomorrow. You'll hear inspiring stories from industry leaders, business owners, community partners, and our team members. The Build Blue podcast, where construction comes to life. An Apex Construction Group production. Welcome to the Build Blue podcast. My name is Jess Blaze with Apex Construction Group, and I am joined today by Greg Weis of MSU Athletics, and I will let you get into some of the details of what you do at MSU Athletics. Let's start with that. Let's learn about your role and kind of what it entails, because it's a mouthful.
Yeah, so my title is a full sentence. I'm our Senior Associate Athletic Director for Development and Revenue Generation. So the development portion is working with donors and philanthropic giving, and then the revenue generation portion is all of what we call earned income. So sponsorship sales, ticket sales, anything else that's more of a transactional piece. So overall, I oversee all of the different revenue streams coming into the athletic department.
So maybe not a job that people would think of when they think of athletics. You know, you're thinking of the coaches and the trainers and some of those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But obviously there is a huge portion of revenue generation and development that goes along with it. And that's where you come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So the business side of things, I guess, kind of hopping into how I got into sports.
Yeah.
I get that question all the time. I grew up being a big sports fan, wanted to be in the industry, wanted to be an athletic trainer. That's why I came to MSU. We have a particularly good athletic training program. And then my freshman year, I took anatomy and realized that wasn't going to be a thing anymore. So I really didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't even consider the business side of sports at that point. So I bounced around a bunch, actually. By the time I was done at MSU, I think I had like 4 different majors and 3 different minors. And didn't really figure out that the business side of sports was an option until like my junior year.
Okay.
And kind of dove right into that, and so yeah, most people don't really think of the business side, but that's actually getting to be the biggest portion of most sports organizations.
Oh, that's so interesting. I want to talk some more about your background here, but we start all of our podcasts with an Apex icebreaker. That's what we call it, and we ask all of our guests, if you could open and run any business, what would it be?
Golf course, 100%.
Golf course. Mm-hmm. You were officially the first person who said golf course.
Really?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'd play golf every day if I could.
Oh, that's so fun. Mm-hmm. That's
absolutely
like not out of the realm of possibility, right? You could open a golf course.
Maybe eventually, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the logistics of that are, but
I mean, you probably have to buy an existing golf course. They're pretty cumbersome to build, but we could.
We've never built one at Apex, but we would certainly try.
All right. I have no idea what it takes.
I have no idea either.
Yeah, absolutely. Golf course, 100%.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. So then I do have on the questions here, did you always want to work in athletics? But you have already answered that question. So do you have an all-time favorite sports memory? Whether in your career, as a kid, as a sports fan?
Well, I'm a Minnesota sports fan, so there's not a whole lot there.
My 10-year-old has already learned that. So,
I mean, I'm 34. The only championship that the Major Four have had since I've been alive is the '91 Twins, and so I don't really remember that. I would say, just sports memory in general. That's a really good question. I guess I would say it's more of a work one than anything else. But probably the coolest experience that I've gotten to have just on like the professional sports side of things is kind of where MSU crosses over. But everybody knows Adam Thielen went to MSU. And everyone's heard the Adam came here on a $500 scholarship story. Where my job gets to come into that, where it's really, really cool, is I get to work with the donors that funded that scholarship. So we ended up getting some tickets to a game, and didn't find out until like Tuesday of that week that Jim and Sue, the Sneers, were going to be able to come with and join us for that game. So we reached out to Adam right away and asked if he wanted to find a time to see him. Adam was incredible. Got us field passes right away. So we brought Jim and Sue down there, got to bring them down on the field. It's 10:30 on game day, so it's like an hour and a half before the game. Adam's got some more important things to worry about than coming out and hanging out with us. So I thought like maybe we'd see him, maybe he'd like say hi quick. he came over for like 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yep. So when you get field passes, I didn't know this, you're only allowed to go on the visitor sideline. So Adam's doing his warm-up stuff, and he got the head of security for the Vikings to walk us through the ropes and bring us down to the Vikings sideline, and came over and hung out with us for like 10 minutes before the game, and like knew Jim and Sue, had met them before and remembered them and thanked them for the impact, and like took a few photos with us, and this was in the middle of the streak where he was setting the NFL record for consecutive 100-yard games.
Oh, that's so cool.
So we did that. It was great. We went to our seats. They were down in one of the end zones. Adam caught a touchdown right in front of Jim and Sue. Had another 100-yard game, so we kept the record going. It was unbelievable. They had like the best time ever. So
that is so cool.
That picture's still on my wall. So that's probably up there for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And how rewarding, like from the perspective of your job, like to see it all come
to
full
fruition.
circle, and then have the donors who funded that scholarship there. Oh my God, that is so cool. And then from a sports fan standpoint,
that was really cool. Yeah.
You look up to these players, so then for them to really live up to that expectation and be really cool.
So they don't all do that. Adam was great.
Oh, that's really awesome. I love that. So let's get into a little bit more of your background. We went from MSU to MSU, but there's some things in between.
Yep. So I did my undergrad at MSU. Like I said, bounced around, didn't really know what I wanted to do in that 18 to 21-year-old time frame. Kind of figured it out at the end there and did a couple internships, one with the Vikings when they were on campus here. And then followed that up with another internship in the Vikings Ops Department. So I did marketing and operations there for a couple of summers when they were down here for training camp. And then it was 2010, and I was graduating, and nobody was hiring because it was square in the middle of the recession. So I interviewed for jobs in LA with the Dodgers and Jacksonville with the PGA Tour, and ended up staying here and going to grad school. So they weren't exactly great jobs. So it was easier to work here for $500 a month than to try to move across the country for a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
So I did that and did an internship with the Minnesota Lynx actually at that time. And that was the year they were bad enough to get the number 1 overall pick, not the year that they were winning championships and stuff. But that was honestly kind of a turning point for me. I'd never done anything revenue generation related. I was always internal ops. I was a pretty shy kid, so that was kind of where I started to come out of my shell a little bit. I did an internship in corporate sales and kind of got to understand the business behind how sports starts to work. And pure happenstance, but the guy that was running the ticket sales department for the Lynx at the time, his name is Joe Schwei. He was the owner of the Moondogs, so it just happened to be the Mankato connection. It didn't really intend to come back at that point. I just happened to meet Joe. Stayed in touch with him, and about 5 months later, they had a job opening come up, so it was the assistant GM position. And he called me, and I left grad school and went over to the Moondogs for a couple of, what I thought was going to be a couple of years. When Joe hired me, he was pretty honest and said, this is probably going to be a 2-year job before you've kind of learned what you can learn and are ready to take the next step. And was coming up on my second year, and we had that conversation and told him that I was going to start to look for what else was out there, and ended up getting hooked up with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I did a couple interviews there, and they flew me out to interview for a job. And as I was leaving, he told me, hey, have fun, but just don't take a job when you're out there. Just want to bring you up to speed on something when you get back. It worked out because when I was out there, I kind of did the whole song and dance with the pro sports team, tour the facility, tour the town, all that fun stuff. And it was great, but I kind of realized that I'm not really a pro sports guy. I love the minors. I love, college athletics portion of it. I love being at a non-D1. I have a lot of friends that are at Power Fives, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, all those big schools, and that's great, but it's just kind of not for me. So when I came back, was fortunate enough that Joe happened to be selling the team, and the guy that he was selling the team to didn't really want to be as involved, so there was an opportunity for Kyle, who was my boss at the time, to get promoted, me to get promoted, and us to add some staff underneath me. So I got to stick around for a little bit longer. A year or so after that, That ownership group expanded. They bought the Sioux Falls Canaries, so I got to spend some time going back and forth between Mankato and Sioux Falls, kind of running sales departments in both of those cities, kind of American Association and Northwoods League. So that was really cool to see kind of the pro element of it and the college element of it. But I wore out the 169 to 94 and over to Sioux Falls pretty quickly doing that. And so when I started this whole process, I was 23 and single, and at this point in time, I was 29 and married, and life was just a little bit different. So was looking to stay in the sports world, stay in the revenue generation, kind of the business side of things. And again, got super lucky that Mankato happened to have the opportunity, and I got to come back to MSU and do this. So I tell people all the time, I never really planned on sticking around. I interviewed for jobs on both coasts and have just found a way to stay here the whole time, which has been really, really cool.
It's so cool to hear that whole progression, like from your college and being uncertain on what direction you wanted to go, and then just being in the community for as long as I have been, and seeing you kind of change careers, and now hearing the story behind all of it is super interesting. So,
and
exciting!
It's fun, and it just kind of speaks to like Mankato's just kind of home now. I didn't intend to stay.
Are you from Mankato originally?
Chanhassen.
Okay.
Yep. So southern Minnesota, not South Metro, but like I just had no intention. I thought Mankato will be a 3 or 4 year stop on kind of the progression, and it's just kind of kept me around. It's a great place to live.
It has a way of doing that,
it
doesn't
does,
it?
Yeah.
So from being a student at MSU to now being an employee at MSU, there's been a lot of changes, and I'm sure not only in your department, but just the facilities and everything around it. So let's speak to those changes, and then how that has reflected in admission and student interest.
Well, they blew up Gage. So I lived in Gage. That was actually
My sister lived in
way
Gage.
way more cool to see that get blown up than I thought. But the big thing is the buildings and the facilities. I think there's been 2 dorms and 2 academic buildings in the last 8 or 9 years, which is huge, especially when you look at kind of the landscape of higher education. There's just less high school seniors now, and the population is kind of on a decline, and less high school seniors are choosing to go to college, so there's just fewer kids going. But MSU has remained steady in enrollment, which is a huge testament to what we have going on, mainly from our facilities and just kind of the overall quality of education that we have. But yeah, it's been a huge change. I mean, when I was there, it was Gage, and you kind of had the 2 sides of campus. That's been blown up, and now all the dorms are kind of in the same spot. They've built up, Ford. They've built up the clinical sciences building. We've had some upgrades in our athletic facilities. We're working on a few more. But yeah, it's never stopped progressing and never stopped growing, which is probably why that we've been able to maintain enrollment where most of our peers have seen a slide, and that's obviously having a lot of long-term impacts on their budgets and trajectories.
Absolutely.
So we're super fortunate to be at MSU and have had the consistent leadership that we've had. We've had 5 presidents going back since the 70s, which is unheard of, absolutely unheard of in the higher education space. So just the consistency that they've had has been fantastic, and it's just kind of allowed us to do some things that some of our peers haven't been able to do, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Let's talk about the excitement in the community surrounding MSU athletics. What's it like on campus? What are you hearing from community partners? And through your work on the development and the business side, what are you hearing from businesses and alumni and individuals in the community?
Yeah, a lot of really good things. I mean, we have over 500 student athletes, clipping 550, depending upon the ebb and flow of each year. So that's a huge department. So we've got kids across the board from all over the country, all over the state, and it's really cool to be able to to be a part of that. We just get to do so many cool things with all of the different areas of the community. The big ones that everybody kind of gets to see are the major sports, that you see, the men's hockey, the football, the men's and women's basketball. But we have 20 sport offerings, which the minimum to be an NCAA Division II is 14, so we're well above that as well. So it's really, really cool to be able to engage a bunch of different ways with a bunch of our different sports, and the fact that we have as many community partners as we do. We're clipping triple digits in businesses that work with us in some way, which is an astronomical amount. It's really, really high. I don't know if there's any context I can give to that, but it's really good. So it's cool to be able to lead that effort and be able to touch that many different sports teams and organizations in the community and just interact in that many different ways. So it might not be a super specific answer to the question, but I mean, our community support is fantastic. And
That's awesome.
It's cool to be able to, play a leadership role in that.
Definitely. The past few seasons of hockey have been incredible. And don't blink because the next season will be starting. So what's the anticipation like for the upcoming hockey season?
It's nuts. And you say don't blink, they're putting ice in across the street right now.
Okay, well,
so
there you go.
It's coming. The anticipation is it's through the roof, really. And you try to temper expectations, and not necessarily temper expectations, but try to remain even keel with it all, because that's kind of the key to sports, is not getting too high or not getting too low. Going to the Frozen Four in 2021, you're not guaranteed to do that again. So we're not guaranteed to do that again next year, but we've got a really, really good team, and the talent that's coming back, the talent that's coming in. The way the schedule sets up is super exciting. If you haven't looked at it yet, we start with the Gophers, the home and home. Then we host Duluth, and then we go to St. Cloud. Unbelievable way to start the season, just in terms of who we're going to be able to bring into the building, the talent that we're going to be able to play against is going to be fantastic. And then we go straight into the conference season, and we're going to try to win a sixth McNaughton Cup in a row and just keep that process going. So, the team is great. The guys are fantastic. That's one of my favorite things about this, kind of coming back to the story about Adam. Our coaching staffs across the board, they don't bring in good athletes, they bring in good people. You saw through Hockey Day how often our guys and girls were out in the community, and they're just fantastic humans, in addition to being really, really good athletes. So I'm excited to continue to do a little bit more of that. COVID kind of took that away from us, so we kind of had to tamp that back down. But I'm excited to be able to hopefully continue to get back to where we were before that, with some of our community events where we can just have as much interaction as we can. But anticipation's through the roof. We saw some huge crowds last year too. That's one of the things I'm most proud of, is the last handful of years we've consistently increased attendance to top 10 in the nation last year in college hockey. We were at 94% average capacity last year. So we're going to keep clipping away at that. The goal is to obviously get to 100. But when I got here, we were in the mid-80s, and now we're in the mid-90s. And so what we're doing is working, and people are buying in and really embracing what we have going on, and really making the place across the street really, really loud and really, really fun to be in. The guys talk about how fun it is to play in and how hard it is for opposing teams to come here and play. So that stuff is kind of the cool things that you get to see, to have an impact and to be able to play that part of it is pretty cool.
Absolutely. And you've been a big part of enhancing the fan experience at the Civic Center. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm referencing, because I can see the Civic Center from where I'm sitting. But with adding Club Cambria right down on the ice and giving partners that viewing experience, we've partnered and remodeled one of the suites, which has been really cool. And I don't have a lot of opinions as far as what is a good seat versus what isn't, but my husband said that is the best view in the Civic Center.
It is,
from
actually.
the Apex MSU suite.
It is, because you're right up on top, so you can see everything. So, but yeah, we've tried to do a few of those different things. Do more of the experience-based stuff, so you can just kind of see it differently. In the Apex suite, you're way right on top of it, so you can see everything. It's a perfect view of the game. Club Cambria, it's kind of the opposite. You're right down next to it. You probably can't see quite as well, but the way you get to experience like the speed of the game, it's just different when you're right next to it. You see how big and strong and fast those guys are. It's cool. And we've worked with a few other partners to kind of find ways that everybody can enjoy a game. Like we know one of the issues is we play somewhere between 18 and 22 home games every year. Season tickets don't work for everybody. You know, not everybody has 18 Fridays and Saturdays free to come out. The ones that do, we absolutely love them to death, and they make our experience great. But we have to find other ways to meet people where they're at. So we have a 5-game pack if you can't quite do full season tickets. We have a family 4-pack if, you know, that 1 or 2 games is what makes more sense for you. We have the hospitality options, you know, if it's 1 game with your company. So we've tried to expand that as much as we can and kind of meet people where they're at. And then hopefully once you come to your first game, you have a really good time and you want to come to more. And we've had a lot of success getting people to their first game and then kind of letting the product and experience speak for itself and kind of bringing more people under the tent. And that's where we've really seen, you know, the growth come in.
What's it like from your perspective, and maybe even if you know, you can speak to the team, to see the youth and the community's excitement for Mav sports? But since we're talking about hockey, let's kind of keep it on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, youth is kind of where the needle is going, right? It's our job to develop the next generation of athletes and sports fans and community members. And so that's kind of where we see that come in. I know the guys love it when they get to see the Skate with the Mavs event where they're like the biggest celebrities in the world. Again, COVID's taken that one away from us for the last couple of years. We're going to see if we can bring it back, but we'll see. But even our autograph lines, Hockey Day when they were just out hanging out, or when they go to the Anthony Ford tournament and it's just pandemonium. You know, you'd think that they play for the Wild. So it's fantastic, and it's kind of one of the cool things that's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're, you know, stewarding the game, so to speak, and making sure that that next generation of fan and player and community member is engaged and gets that opportunity. So we do as much of that stuff as we can too.
I have a very big Stomper fan in my house.
Stomper is the best. We make sure that he is around as much as humanly possible, and he does a great job too. You know, that's the best part about kind of having Stomper. Is one of the hard things about you know, college athletics is it's kind of transitory. You know, you're here for a period of time, 3, 4, 5 years, and then you're on with life. And so that's one of the hard things, but Stomper is the one that we kind of have for forever. Absolutely. Stomper can be anywhere at all times. And so he's always going to be the one that we can send out and kind of be that ambassador for MSU and for Maverick Athletics specifically. But yeah, Stomper. And it's funny because kids either love him or hate him.
Yes.
Like, you either are obsessed with Stomper or they're just more afraid of him than like the monster under the bed. But
so
you see both of them.
It's so true. And sometimes it starts with terrified, and by the end of the season, it's
they
like,
warm up.
Oh my God, stuff is awesome now.
Or if you we try to find like easy ways for him to interact. You know, it's funny, but we actually kind of have to think about this stuff sometimes. So we put him in the lobby, and then this year, you know, we had a donor step up and want to help us improve the fan experience. And so they gave us some money to kind of do that as we saw fit, and we kind of ran a few options by him, and one of them was to, you know, make Stomper more of a focal point, give him an opportunity to do some more cool things, and our donor loved it, and so we bought him a hockey net for hockey and a basketball hoop to be up at basketball so kids could shoot pucks at him and shoot hoops with them, and bought him a t-shirt gun so he could go around and shoot t-shirts off and just kind of be that cool constant experience that everybody can have. And it was great. Like, the line is out the door just to shoot pucks at Stomper, and then you stop and you make your sign, and, you know, you just kind of work your way through that kind of experience. There's a photo booth in there that, you know, Taylor was fortunate enough or nice enough to donate to us, and so we kind of have created this entry experience a little bit, so that hopefully it kind of primes you to get into the building and continue to have a good time. But it's incredible how much just kind of having Stomper there and having something for him to interact with kind of changes that experience that's in there.
Totally. And to the kids, obviously, he's a big character, and he's fun, and he does silly stuff, but he's really become like a symbol for like the growth and the excitement that's surrounding these programs to the community.
Yeah, and he's great. So we're going to keep finding different cool things for him to do. See how far we can push the envelope without really getting too much. We're not trying to get ourselves in trouble. You know, we're not going to be Crunch, but like Benny the Bull or those sorts of things. Yeah, absolutely.
No trampoline.
No trampoline. I don't think our insurance would let me do that.
That makes sense. So many individuals and companies have embraced this hockey program. I mean, you really see a community following this team. Like when you guys were in, was it Boston last year?
Boston.
And then
Unbelievable.
Philadelphia.
Pittsburgh.
The year prior, I mean, you have this group that's like traveling with the team. And what is that like? It's
unbelievable. And so fortunate, I'm super fortunate to be able to have experienced like 3 national championships now. So in 2019, right before the pandemic, we played in the football national championship game in just outside of Dallas. And we traveled incredibly well down there too. Didn't quite get the win, but we won everything except the game down there in terms of crowd size, pregame celebration, tailgate, fan amenities. Like, so we traveled really, really well down to Dallas for football. Then unfortunately had COVID, and coming out of that got to go to Pittsburgh. One of the hardest things was our ticket allotment. You know, we were at, if memory serves, the capacity of that building was right around 15%. So we got, I want to say it was like 120 tickets for the weekend. And so those went immediately, and we were fortunate that a bunch of people hopped on the secondary market and found others that were available. And I think there was like 2 restaurants in the like 3-mile radius around the rink that were open, and we set up shop at one of them, and you know, did what we could to kind of make it feel like normal, but it obviously was nowhere near normal. But still, we were in a Frozen Four. You know, that's incredible. And then this last year to go through it again and be able to go out to Boston without any restrictions, it was great. I mean, we sold our allotment of tickets immediately. We opened up another allotment, sold that, and then still had tons of people go out on the secondary market and buy tickets and get out there. When we won the first game, I know of a few dozen people that dropped everything and came out. So to be able to have gone through that was really, really cool. So I guess the one constant when we travel is, you know, we travel really, really well, whether it's football, whether it's hockey. I know in basketball, got to go out to Massachusetts for their national championship for the women and for Final Four for the men. They traveled really well. So, you know, we've got a great following here. Something about the Mankato community is just kind of adopted Maverick athletics, and it was great. And, you know, personally, I'm super excited for that Gopher game next year, because the experience out in Boston, if you weren't there, we somehow ended up having our pregame celebrations at the same bar. So it was a 4-floor bar. Spoiler alert, we booked it first. So we got the first 2 floors. They booked it after us and got the 3rd and 4th floor. So they had to go through our party to get to their party. Our party was bigger and better than theirs, which was awesome. Then we went over to the rink and beat them 5-1, and you know, got to be the better of the 2 Minnesota teams, which was unbelievable. But one of the cool things, they do a red carpet arrival for pre-games for the Frozen Four. And so they kind of told us about it a week and a half or so in advance. We kind of started to, put our plans together, get the band there, get Stomper there, kind of communicate as best you can. But the weird thing is the team gets there, you know, 2.5 hours or so before the game. So we're trying to get people to the pregame event. They're kind of arriving over here. We weren't really sure how it was going to go. Fortunately, they were only about a block and a half apart. We're coming back after the entry for the national championship game. One of the NCAA reps pulled our AD aside and said that was the best red carpet arrival we've ever had.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, I mean, it was packed. And, you know, they had this really cool entry. You know, they bring them in with the police escort. They stop them kind of right in front of the garden, which the Boston Garden is the Boston Garden. It's this iconic sports venue. You come right up in, you know, the stairs, and it was just packed. I actually ended up on the the sports section of the Boston Globe, climbing on the Bobby Orr statue, which I probably wasn't supposed to be doing. But it was really, really cool. And to have an NCAA rep, you know, was completely unbiased, doesn't have any reason to say that, to pull Kevin aside and say that's really, really cool.
That is so cool.
The amount of community support that we have, like, that is kind of the, like, objective. Like, this community supports us better than most communities support their, you know, college sports.
And you think about it from the perspective of the players, and like you said, they're here for 3 to 5 years. You know, who knows what their future will hold, but like these are memories that they're going to have for their whole life. And that's...
Yeah, we get to be like cool. That cool experience for them, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, that's so special. So what's in store for the future of MSU Athletics? The fan experience, the whole thing?
Keep getting better. I mean, really is kind of the mantra, right? You know, get a little bit better every day. So there's a couple of things that we're working on across the street. You know, we're going to try to expand Club Cambria a little bit. We're going to try to work with a couple of more corporate partners to kind of meet a few more groups where they're at. You know, I'm saying that we try to, like I said, find different segments of the population that we might not be meeting well enough right now and figure out how to get more people into the games. One of the cool things that we launched in the middle of last year, which I'm pretty proud of, and sounds like Cub's going to work with us again on it, but they just bought a block of tickets every game and left it up to us for who they should be donated to. So we got to just give tickets to people that otherwise wouldn't be able to come to a game. Things like that. You know, our youth team of the game, which Duncan works with us on, is fantastic. And just more ways that we can get kids involved. Kids specifically, but community members involved, hopefully for their first game. And then, like we said, once they come to one, we're pretty confident that they'll enjoy the experience and come to more and more. So that's what we're going to keep trying to do. We got a couple of things in the hopper that I can't quite promise yet, but that's always going to be, you know, our next goal is how do we get a couple of more people involved? How do we get, you know, if we're at 94% across the street, you know, how do we get that a little bit higher? How do we get a few more people to some football games? How do we get a few more people to some basketball games? How do we do that for soccer and volleyball and all of our sports? So most people see hockey, but we try to make sure that everybody that wants to be involved in whatever their favorite sport is, because we have 20 sport offerings, we can kind of meet pretty much anybody where they're at.
So when does football get fired up?
Pretty quick. They'll be here next month. So they get 20 practices, I believe it is, before the first game. And we start the first Thursday in September.
Okay, that'll be... God,
it's here before you know
time is flying. And if there is a community member or a business listening that isn't involved in MSU Athletics but would like to, what's the best way for them to go about that?
My phone number and email are on our website.
Okay, I'll link it in the show notes of the episode too, so people can get a hold of you.
Absolutely, call me directly. I'd be happy to have a conversation with anybody about the best way to get them involved.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Greg?
No, just thanks for having me. Anybody that's watching, thanks for caring enough about us and MSU Athletics to tune in and support us, and looking forward to seeing you at a game.
Yeah, you guys are doing a fabulous job. Keep up the great work. We're excited to see what the future holds, and we'll see you up in the suite here not too long.
Cool, sounds great.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks. Sweet.